Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a real workhorse of the programming world, the free, open source, and super customizable C++ IDE code blocks. Whether you're just getting your feet wet with C++ or you're a seasoned pro, this is a tool you should definitely know about. Alright, so here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with a problem that I'm sure a lot of you have faced. Then we'll introduce code blocks as the hero of our story. We'll pop the hood to see how it all works, take a look at its long history, and then the big one. We'll figure out if it's the right fit for you and your projects.
So first up, let's talk about a challenge that pretty much every developer runs into at some point. It doesn't matter if you're a student, a hobbyist, or doing this for a living.
I mean, have you ever been there? You're on the hunt for a development environment that has all the pro features. A great debugger, solid compiler support, the whole shebang. But you don't want to get locked into some expensive ecosystem or a tool that only runs on one operating system, right? It's a classic problem to have.
And that's exactly where our solution comes in. Let's introduce code blocks, an IDE that basically says, hey, why trade off? You can have it all.
So what is it exactly? Well, the official definition is that it's a free, open source, and cross-platform IDE. It's mostly famous for C and C++, but it also supports Fortran, which, makes it a bit of a hidden gem for folks in the scientific and engineering worlds.
The whole idea behind code blocks really stands on these 4 pillars. First off, it's free. Like, actually free, no cost, no strings attached. It's open source, which means it's built out in the open by a community of developers. It's cross-platform, so you can work on Windows, switch over to Linux, and it'll feel just the same. And this last one, this is the real magic. It is built from the ground up to be extensible.
So, that extensibility we just talked about, that's really the secret sauce here. Think of code blocks less like a pre-built tool and more like a totally custom workshop.
Okay, and this is where it gets really cool. The entire power of code blocks comes from its plugin system. I mean, just think about that for a second. The most basic things you do, like compiling your code or debugging it, even those are plugins. This means the whole thing is super lightweight to start, and you just snap in the tools you need, like adding a new drill or a sander to your workbench.
And this right here, this is the proof in the pudding. Because it's not locked into one way of doing things, code blocks can work with a ton of different compilers. Whether you're using the standards like GCC and Clang, or you need to work with the Microsoft compiler, or even some old school ones like Borland, code blocks can handle it. That kind of freedom is a total game changer.
Of course, an IDE isn't much good without a powerful debugger, and this one is definitely solid. You get all the essentials you'd expect, setting breakpoints to pause your code, checking the call stack to see how you got there, peeking into memory, and even the CPU registers. Basically, it gives you X-ray vision into your code while it's running.
And for anyone out there building desktop apps, this is a huge plus. Code blocks comes with a tool called WX Smith. It's what we call a RAD tool, Rapid Application Development, which is just a fancy way of saying you can literally drag and drop buttons and windows to build your app's interface. It's a huge time saver.
All right, so we know how it works, but where did it come from? Well, code blocks isn't some brand new app. This thing has been around the block, and its history tells a really interesting story about its stability.
So get this, the journey starts all the way back in 2005. The first really stable version came out in 2008. Now, quick heads up for any Mac users out there. The last official, easy-to-install version was way back in 2013. You can still build newer versions yourself, but it's not a simple download. Then, after a pretty long quiet spell, a new stable version dropped in March of 2025, which was a huge deal, basically signaling that, hey, this project is far from over.
So here's the deal. Even though those big, stable releases can be few and far between, the project is always being worked on. A lot of power users actually live on the nightly builds, which are fresh versions of the code released, well, nightly. And one other thing, since this is all community run, the official forums are your go-to for help. Just, keep in mind they can sometimes take a little nap.
Which brings us to the bottom line, the big question. With all of this in mind, how do you know if code blocks is the right tool for you?
Let's break it down. On one hand, code blocks is an absolutely brilliant choice for students just learning C++, or for anyone trying to move on from an older tool like Dev C++. It's also perfect for projects that have to run on both Windows and Linux. If you want a totally customizable IDE that costs nothing, it's tough to beat. But on the other hand, you've got to consider that outdated Mac support and the fact that help comes from community forums. Also, the look and feel is, let's call it, classic.
It's functional, not flashy. And one last thing, it uses its own XML project files, which is just something to know going in.
And that really brings us to a bigger, more interesting question for today. In a world that's all about cloud IDEs and slick, all-in-one ecosystems, what's the place for a classic, customizable, run-on-your-own-machine tool like CodeBlocks? The fact that it's still here and still being developed suggests its value is in its simplicity, its flexibility, and the total control it gives you. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Some things, like freedom and control, just never go out of style.